Hello, and welcome back to week 2 of our coding club. If you go ahead and head over to the Eshelman Coding website and follow the link to get here to Thimble, and go ahead and get logged in, you should see your username up here at the top. So the first thing that we're going to cover is just 2 other features that Thimble gives us. If you were to click this down arrow, you're going to see from here you can also create a new project, as well as over here. But there's this nice little thing that says Your Projects. If you were to click on that, you'll be able to see any projects that you've been working on in the past. So most of you should see week 1, which would be last week when we first introduced everything, and then anything else that you're working on. So if you wanted to go back and keep working on week 1 project, or if you had another project you were working on, just know that you can always come in here, click on it, and it'll pull up that code. For the purposes of this week, though, we're just going to create a new project from scratch. And the first thing that we want to do, like we always do when the project loads, is delete all of the pre-generated code that it gives us. So we'll come up here and we'll just hit delete. And then let's name our project something nice like week 2. Alright, so as a refresher and setting up our document, at the very top of the document, you're going to do your left angle bracket, a exclamation point, and the word doc type all capital, followed by a space, HTML, and then your closing bracket. What this does is it tells the browser, hey, everything that follows is HTML code. That way the browser knows what to do with it. The next thing that follows is your opening HTML tag, and it automatically gives us our closing HTML. And this just is the bun of the hamburger, if you will, that holds all of the things in between. Inside of our HTML tags, we are going to have our head tag, and underneath of our head tag, we are going to have our body tag. And you'll notice both of these have our opening tag and our closing tag, opening tag, closing tag. Now inside of our head, if you'll remember, we have a title. And what this title does is it is what will be visible on the tab, or if you were to bookmark the site, what shows up for the name of the site when you're bookmarking it. So we'll call this one ordered. Well, let's just call it lists and tables, since that's what we'll be covering. And at this point, you have the basic structure that you're going to use for every HTML document that you make. So without further ado, let's get into the body. So just again, everything that goes in between these 2 body tags is what is actually going to display on your site. So let's start off and let's make a nice big heading, and let's call it ordered list. Okay. So in HTML, you have 2 different types of lists. You have an ordered list and an unordered list. The ordered list will create a list that is numerical. You have 1, you have item 2, you have item 3, etc. The unordered list is just a bulleted list of items. So let's start with the ordered list. And aptly named, if we do opening bracket OL for ordered list and close it, and then we automatically get our closing bracket here, we now have the outline of our list. Now, to actually put content into our list, we need list items. So again, opening bracket, LI for list item, closing bracket, and you'll see right away that it popped up over here with the number 1. So now anything we place between these opening and closing list item brackets will show up over there. So let's make it a list about animals. So our first list item is cat. If we drop down and we open up another list item, we get number 2, and we can do dog. And let's add 1 more, and let's say owl, because everybody has a pet owl. And now you see we have an ordered list, which is shown numerically with a 1, a 2, and a 3, and then our content, cat, dog, owl, down here on the side. So that's an ordered list, but what if we don't want to have numbers? What if we just want to have bullets? Well, then we're going to use an unordered list. And in HTML, that's just a UL for unordered list. And again, it'll automatically generate that closing tag for us. And it's the same thing. Inside, we need our list item. So we can do an LI for list item. And now you'll see instead of a 1, we get this bullet. So anything we place in between the list item now will just show us a bulleted list. So let's do some names. Let's do Zach. Let's add in another list item. And we'll say Joe. And we'll add in one more list item. And we'll call it Sally Sue. So over here now in our unordered list, we have bullet items, Zach, Joe, and Sally Sue. So those are the two different types of lists that you have access to in HTML. One cool thing that you can do with it as well is you can put a list inside of a list. So what does that look like? Let's start an ordered list. And inside our ordered list, let's put our first list item, and we'll say names. Now, underneath of our names, let's say we want to have a unordered list showing different names. So we'll open up an unordered list, and now inside of our unordered list, we'll just put our list item, and we'll put Zach. And you'll see we have our 1 under our unordered list, list item names, but then underneath of that we have a bullet because we have an unordered list inside of it with the name Zach. So let's add one more to that, and we'll say list item, and we'll say Sally Sue. And now we'll come down below our closing tag for our unordered list, and we will create our second list item. So now we have a 2, and we'll call this one animals. And inside of this, let's create yet again an unordered list, and we'll put just 2 of our animals from our top list. So list item dog and list item cat. So again, we have an ordered list with a unordered list inside. And we have just different elements, and you could switch this. So if we change our unordered or our ordered list to a UL, and we close our UL, you'll see now it's just bullet inside a bullet. Or we can change our UL to an OL and make sure you close your opening and your closing tag. Make sure you change both of those. And now you just see we have the reverse of what we did. Now we have a bulleted list with a ordered list inside. So that's one cool feature with lists. You can nest them inside of each other. So that's lists. So the other thing that we want to look at is we looked at our lists. So now we want to look at tables. So before we get started on tables, let's take a look at a little visual of a table. In your table, you normally have your top row, which is your headings for what each column is going to contain. And then in each of your parts of the table, you have the actual data itself. So in HTML, you have to, just like we open up our body, just like we open up our head, we're going to open up our table, and then we're going to close our table. Inside of our table, we need to specify each of the table rows. So we open up a table row, and we close a table row. Open a table row, close a table row. Our very first table row, though, is our heading. It's going to be, again, the labels for the columns. So we use the TH, table heading. And what this will do is it will bold the text, and it will center it in that table. And then we close that row, and then we create our second row. And now this row is going to insert the actual data. So table data and whatever corresponds to that column. So let's switch back to our HTML code, and let's take a look at this. So first thing, we open our table, and we close our table. And then our very first row, we're going to open our table row, close our table row, and it's going to be our headings. So we'll do table heading, and we'll do names. and we want another heading in our row, and we want that to be animal. And we'll do one more heading, and we'll say age. So you'll see it started to build our table, and it has it bolded, and it would be centered in there. We have our names, animal, age, all in that first row. So now we're going to drop down to our second row, table row, close it, and now we need to fill in the data. So our first table data is name, so we'll say Zach. And our next table data is animals, so we'll do table data and we'll say dog. And finally, our last one is asking for age, so table data, age, and we'll say 900. And now you see that in the second row, it filled in Zach, dog, and 900 under each of the things. So let's create another table row. And we will insert our table data, and we'll say Sally Sue. But we don't know if Sally Sue has an animal or not, so we're just going to go straight to age. And the age is 800. But wait a second, if we look over at our table, 800 isn't underneath of age, it's underneath of animal, but we don't know the animal. So how do we get that space in there? So if we just enter a blank table data with no data actually inside of it, it will just create an empty slot, and now our third 800 will show up underneath of age. And you can go ahead and make the table as large with as many rows as you want, as many columns as you want, and you just insert the data in the same order that you created the headings. No, keeping in mind that if you want to skip, that you just create an empty table data element, and that will make it blank over in the table for you. So that's everything that we covered this week. So remember that we have ordered list, which are numbered. We have unordered list, which are bulleted. We can put list inside of list, which is called nesting. So we nested an order list inside of an unordered list. And then we have our tables. And with tables, you need to create your opening table, closing table, your first table row, and give it your headings, and then your second table row and fill in all of the data. So our first table row with our headings, our second table row with the data, and all of our subsequent table rows with the data, keeping in mind that we can always have a blank table data spot if we don't have the information to fill in there. Try this out over the next week, see what you can create, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.